Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is still playing out the short-term bearish trend, while hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin are now getting dumped on the market. But with that being said, in the short term, Bitcoin is finding a lot of support around this critical area on the chart, while Ethereum is also now bouncing from this critical area of support in the short term. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today, we need to take a look at the Bitcoin news today. And just yesterday, on Monday, we saw a decent sized net outflow from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. This time around, it was a net outflow of around 174 million US dollars. And in case you're new to all of this, a net outflow from the spot Bitcoin ETFs basically means the Bitcoin ETF providers, like for example Fidelity or ARK, are having to dump this Bitcoin on the market in order to pay out these outflows in US dollars. Or like Grayscale, for example, basically just on Monday dumped around $90 million worth of Bitcoin, which caused more short-term selling pressure as we saw on Monday. And I've talked about this over the last 2 to 3 weeks now. I've been saying that at least at the moment, we're actually seeing net outflow after net outflow from the Bitcoin ETFs just over the last couple of weeks or so. And I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, while we're seeing these net outflows, expect some short-term bearish price action for Bitcoin because this is causing selling pressure, which is obviously bearish for the price. And so once again, to repeat what I've been saying over the last couple of weeks, while we're seeing these net outflows, expect short-term bearish price action as a likely scenario while we're seeing the net outflows continue from the spot Bitcoin ETFs. And with that being said, taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today, taking a look at the 4-day time frame to start off with. And right now, both the Bollinger Band and the Bollinger Band width indicator have not really changed over the last 1 day. At least for now, these indicators have not signaled that the next extremely volatile move has even really started. And when I'm talking about an extremely volatile move on the larger time frames right here, like this 4-day time frame, I'm talking about a 20 to 30% move in the price of Bitcoin, or possibly even bigger. And usually these volatile moves play out within just a few weeks or so from when this signal actually confirms. And so at least for now, on the larger timeframes, the price is basically within a massive sideways consolidation range, which is what we've seen actually over the last few months. We've basically been range bound in between around 73,000 and around 56,000 in that massive sideways price range. And basically, almost any time where we see a large sideways price range that goes on for multiple months, basically that's building towards an extremely volatile movement in the price of Bitcoin that is likely coming very soon relative to this time frame, as in the coming weeks, as a likely scenario based on what we've seen in the past when this signal has flashed. But with that being said, taking a look at this 3-day Bitcoin chart, and as of right now, the 3-day Bitcoin RSI is still heading to the downside into the lower half of the indicator, below 50 in the RSI. And if we're looking at all of the previous times over the last 1 to 2 years where the RSI on the 3-day time frame has gone below 50, basically all of those previous examples turn out to be some pretty decent buying opportunities if you're simply just accumulating some Bitcoin or dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin during those time periods and holding on for the longer term. But as always, nothing in these videos is personal financial advice because I don't know your personal financial situation. I'm just pointing out on the Bitcoin chart, looking at the raw data, what has actually worked throughout Bitcoin's history as a very likely scenario for what could be coming next. But I talked more about this chart right here in my last video here on the channel. So if you missed that video, definitely check it out if you want to know more about this chart right here. But long story short, on the larger timeframes like the 4-day chart, the 3-day chart, the weekly chart, we have not actually confirmed a trend reversal of the larger bullish trend on the larger timeframes, also known as the bull market. But if we're zooming into the slightly shorter term, just on the daily time frame here, obviously, as I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, we are within a short-term bearish trend, which once again, as I always say, short-term bearish trends can occur during a larger bullish trend. And so, first of all, around 3 weeks ago, I talked about this initial warning signal that was potentially signaling here in the DXY with this spike to the upside. I mentioned that potential warning signal around 3 weeks ago, and then about 2 weeks ago, when we actually confirmed the higher high in the DXY and a higher low here in the DXY. At that point, around 2 weeks ago, at much higher prices here in the price of Bitcoin, around 67,000, give or take, it was at that point where I actually flipped much more bearish in the short term, confirming the short-term bearish trend for the price of Bitcoin around 2 weeks ago. And ever since then, basically every day over the last 2 weeks, I have been more bearish in the short term for the price of Bitcoin. And so, at least for now, while this DXY is still forming higher lows and higher highs, basically trending in the bullish direction, we should expect the short-term bearish trend for the price of Bitcoin to continue, because historically speaking, when the DXY is trending in the bullish direction, that is almost always bearish for Bitcoin and crypto. And vice versa, when the DXY is trending in the bearish direction, that is almost always bullish for Bitcoin and crypto. So at least for now, once again, while the DXY is trending in the bullish direction, as I've been saying basically every day over the last couple of weeks, this is a bearish signal and basically pointing towards a bearish trend for Bitcoin, at least in terms of these short-term bullish and bearish trends. But if we're taking a closer look at this daily Bitcoin chart right here, we can obviously see that throughout this short-term bearish trend, we can see some bounces here and there. That is a possibility. Obviously, nothing moves in a straight line. And so what we are now seeing just in the imminent short term right here is the price of Bitcoin running into a critical area of support, sitting in between around $60,000 to $61,000. And so at least for now, we're actually finding support and bouncing around that area. And if we're taking a look at the daily Bitcoin RSI, I mentioned in my last video that this was entering into oversold territories, but now over the last 1 day, we've confirmed that daily candle close in this area of support and confirmed the fact that the RSI has indeed officially entered into oversold territories with that daily candle close as confirmation. And considering the large red candle right here on the daily time frame and that large candle wick to the downside, similar to what we've seen back here, for example, or back here, for example, there's a very good chance, a very likely chance that at least just in the shorter term, as in over the next few days, possibly over the next week, we're likely going to see a bit of a break now from that short-term bearish trend. Not necessarily the end of the trend and a confirmed bullish reversal. So not that, once again, we have not confirmed a bullish trend reversal. For that, we need to see more of a bearish trend reversal in the DXY. But once again, nothing moves in a straight line. We can see some sideways consolidations or slight bounces even during a bearish trend. And so that is what I'm now expecting just over the next few days, possibly over the next week. I'm now expecting a bit of a sideways consolidation, basically the price somewhat chilling out a little bit after this volatility that we've seen over the last 1 to 2 weeks. And especially considering the fact that we're running into support and we have that oversold signal in the RSI. So there is a good chance that the price could now actually reset the RSI back to the upside to potentially give us more room to the downside later on. And how we can see the RSI reset back to the upside out of those oversold territories is simply by seeing a bit more of a bounce from this support, potentially back up to this area of resistance. That's a possibility. Or even just seeing some choppy sideways price action, some sideways price action here that can also help to reset the RSI. So once again, a bit of a break from the bearish trend. But as I just said earlier, this signal by itself is not enough to confirm a bullish trend reversal. So even though just over the next few days, maybe over the next week, I'm expecting a bit of a relief from that short-term bearish trend. Once again, it is possible that we could reset the RSI in that time period, just in the short term, which can give us some more room to the downside later on. That is a possible scenario that we need to consider. And so with that being said, if we're taking a look at other support and resistance areas here on the daily Bitcoin charts, below that area of support in between 60 to 61,000, we have this area of support in between around 56,500 to 58,000 approximately. And that is a critical area of support to hold above, not only for the price on the daily time frame, but also for the larger bull market, the larger bullish trend. Because if we start breaking below 56K, so below this previous low right here on the larger time frames, that would be very bad news for the bull market, which I talked more in detail about in my last video here on the channel. But with that being said, looking at resistance in the short term, as of right now, we do have resistance still in between around 63,000 to 64,000, and a lot more resistance in between around 67,000 to 68,000, and more resistance in between around 72,000 to 74,000. And these areas have not changed basically ever since we originally saw the rejections from these areas. I was already warning about that 72k level as strong resistance even before this first major rejection that we saw just a few weeks ago. And if you want to actually trade these moves in the price of any crypto, personally, I take those sort of trades over on Bybit. So I'll make sure to leave a link to Bybit down below this video in the description and in the pinned comment. And if you use that link down below this video to make a Bybit account and deposit on that account, then you can get up to a $30,000 deposit bonus, but only if you use that link down below this video. And also, if you use that link, it'll take you to this page right here, which is currently a massive lucky draw happening right now on Bybit with up to a $100,000 prize that you could potentially win just by trading on Bybit. And so essentially, just by trading crypto on Bybit, you're getting these lucky draw chances, which you can use on this lucky draw right here to win some free Bitcoin or Ethereum or a trip to an F1 race or up to $100,000 on your Bybit account. And so if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out. Once again, first link down below this video. But for whatever reason, if you cannot access Bybit or if you cannot KYC on Bybit, there is also Bitflex, which is another crypto exchange similar to Bybit, but you don't need KYC for Bitflex. And so I'll also make sure to leave a link to Bitflex down below this video as an alternative crypto exchange. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, looking at the 4-hour Bitcoin chart, we can clearly see that usually over the weekends, as shown by these areas on the chart right here, we see reduced volatility. And usually during the week, on the weekdays, we see an increased amount of volatility. And obviously, especially in the latest week right here, this has been working very well because as soon as the weekend ended, we saw a massive increase in volatility with that quick dump to the downside, and now a somewhat decent bounce, at least as of right now. But as I explained earlier on the daily time frame, over the next few days, potentially over the next week, I do actually expect, as the most likely scenario, a bit of a relief from that short-term bearish trend now that the RSI entered into oversold territories and we're running into some major support. But during the week, on the weekdays, that could play out in the form of some choppy sideways price action. So once again, during the week, we could still see a decent amount of volatility. And then once again, over the weekends, that will likely calm down with a lot more boring or flat price action over the weekend. And so that's basically what I'm expecting over the coming days, over the coming week as the most likely scenario here in the short term, in the somewhat mid-term in terms of the trend here, and the longer term trend. That is my complete expectations as the most likely scenario based on what we've seen in the charts. And if we're taking a look at this Bitcoin liquidation heat map, at least as of right now, obviously over the last few days, we've wiped out a lot of long positions right here that had a lot of liquidity to the downside. And at least for now, we do have a small area of liquidity just building to the downside here at around 58,000, give or take. But with that being said, we do now actually have more liquidity starting to build to the upside compared to the downside, at least in the short term, considering over the last few days, once again, we have wiped out a lot of that downside liquidity. And so as of right now, we do actually have a decent amount of liquidity building to the upside at around 64.9k to 65.1k. And so just keep that in mind. There's now a decent amount of liquidity building to the upside, but also keep in mind that between now and then we have this major area of resistance where the price will also likely struggle at. And with that being said, taking a look at Ethereum on the daily time frame, and right now the price of ETH is bouncing almost exactly based on the daily candle closes, exactly at around this 50% retracement level, which is sitting at around 33.50 approximately. And we did actually see a candle wick to the downside to the next Fibonacci retracement level, which is the golden pocket area of support sitting in between around 3170 to 3220 approximately. And so those are the support levels to pay attention to here on the daily time frame. And of course, the short-term trend and momentum is clearly bearish, as I've been saying for a while now on the channel. And if we're taking a look at this 12-hour time frame, once again, as I said in my last video, we already invalidated this bullish divergence right here. That already played out for a few days here in the short term, but obviously we ended up seeing another major rejection from this significant area of resistance in between 3.6k to 3650. So that is still an area of resistance to pay attention to. And we also have this level right here, which could act as a bit of short-term resistance, sitting at around 3450. And as for this level of support that we've just now seen a bounce from, this is sitting at around 3.3k. And this level is based on previous support and resistance, and also this Fibonacci retracement level based on the Fibonacci retracement tool from this previous swing high to this swing low. And as I always say, usually Ethereum and Solana and a lot of other top altcoins in the market kind of follow along with what Bitcoin is doing. So if Bitcoin has a massive dump, usually a lot of the crypto market is going to follow that. And if Bitcoin has a massive pump to the upside, usually a lot of the crypto market, especially the larger alts, will follow Bitcoin with that pump. And so because I expect a bit of a short-term relief from the bearish trend just in the short term for Bitcoin, it is actually quite likely that we could also see something similar for Ethereum potentially over the next few days, either a bit of a bounce or just some choppy sideways price action, essentially a break from the short-term bearish trend, but not necessarily the confirmation that we're now ending the bearish trend, kind of like what we saw just here. We saw a bit of a break before the continuation of that short-term bearish trend. And so at least just in the short term, as in potentially over the next few days or the next week, that sort of time frame, this is what I'm expecting in the short term for Ethereum. And if we're taking a look at Solana on the 12-hour time frame, obviously over the last one day, we saw a massive bounce from this exact area of support that I've been talking about over and over again here on the channel, saying that this is a massive area of support to pay attention to, sitting in between 120 to 128. And so we bounced exactly from that area as expected, which I've been saying we have a lot of buying pressure, a lot of buyers in that area. And also combined with the fact that the 12-hour Solana RSI just recently entered into oversold territories. Once again, that is usually a signal telling us that sometime soon we're going to reset the RSI, which usually plays out in the form of either a bounce or some choppy sideways price action, basically a short-term relief from the bearish trend. But this signal by itself is not enough to fully confirm a trend reversal. And so once again, just for the next few days, we're likely either going to bounce around in this sideways price range or possibly see a little bit more of a bounce. This is a likely scenario, basically a break from this short-term bearish trend, but not necessarily confirming the end of the trend. Because in order to confirm that, we need to see some decent breakouts, some confirmed breakouts with candle closes back above significant resistance. And so first of all, we need to at least see a confirmed breakout back above around 144 to 145. So the top side of this area of resistance in between around 140 to 144. And so if we start to see that, then yes, at that stage, we can start flipping a little bit more bullish in terms of the trend and momentum. But ideally, we need to get back above $160 in order to be much more confident that the price and the trend and momentum is actually really flipping much more bullish again in the short term. And so once again, as I say here on the channel, nothing moves in a straight line. We can see some bounces here and there during a short-term bearish trend, which is why we need to see extra confirmation like breakouts above resistance in order to expect a bullish trend reversal. But just in the imminent short term for the next couple of days, I do actually expect a bit of a relief or break from that short-term bearish trend as the most likely scenario. And once again, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out those links down below this video to claim those extra bonuses. And if you want to actually know how to trade crypto, no matter if the price is bullish, bearish, or chopping around sideways, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen. The video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions. And the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. But anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.